Can you hear me?
Hey.
Okay, I got a bit tired of writing. Anyway,
Yeah,
the
understandable.
problem with factor free range stuff,
Yeah.
it's a problem that it's not sustainable. Like we can't feed the whole population with free range.
I hear you. I understand where
It's
you're coming from. With the current level of meat consumption,
yeah,
and with the
that's another point in the discussion, but I'm totally against killing animals for food.
you are,
And
I understand that.
like what?
I understand that. I appreciate that. That makes sense.
So can we go back to your grandpa?
Yeah, if you like.
Can you explain again why did they let him die?
Because it was time to let him die. He was literally unable to do anything, so he couldn't even swallow at that point. The way that they were keeping him alive was a cotton bud. Do you know what a cotton bud is? They got a cotton.
No.
Okay.
Can you give me a link to in the chat,
what, to a cotton bud? I mean,
Cambo?
cotton bud. It's basically just a small bit of cotton, and they put some water on it, and then dab the water onto the back of his throat to keep him hydrated.
Oh, okay.
Because he was unable to swallow, so it was just absorbing a little bit of water basically, and then putting it into his throat to keep him alive. And the decision was made that this was, it was the end of his life. He was never going to recover from this situation. He was completely aware, just unable to talk. So he knew what was happening. He knew that people were no longer giving him water. And it was all he wanted. Obviously, he was pleading for it, but wordlessly because he was unable to talk. And we would never let an animal die in that condition. Never. You look at your pet. If your pet is at the end of its life, you can take it to the vets, and the vet will give it an injection and put it to sleep. Now, the reason we can't do that with our meat is obviously A, it's very expensive, and B, it would put poisonous chemicals into the meat itself. So obviously,
Yeah, but there's an obvious difference in the treatment. For the treatment for your grandfather, they're proposing this treatment in the best interest of your grandfather.
Well, no, it's because it's against the law to kill him, so they have to let him die. It's against the law to kill a human in our country. So if we were in Switzerland, for example, you could take him, you could explain the situation, and I think it's some kind of medical board agree that he's at the end of his life, and they can give him an injection which will kill him, which will literally put him to death. Okay, and the same thing in America, they do it to criminals. They have a lethal injection that will just put a criminal to sleep. Now, that's because they've got those laws. In England, we do not have those laws. It's against the law to kill a person at any point in their life, but it's not against the law to not keep them alive anymore. So if they will die on their own if you don't help them, that's not a crime. And so that's exactly what they do. They just leave people to die. It's not just my granddad, it's every person. And this is something that I think more people should look into, because I'm talking about England, but it's obviously not just England,
Don't you think that the way that he died was wrong?
Well, would you like to be left to die of thirst?
No.
Right. Would you rather be shot in the head?
Well, it depends.
If those are your two choices.
If I was suffering,
right.
If I was suffering, I'd rather die an instantaneous death.
Okay, how about if you knew that suffering was an inevitability? Because we're all going to die at some point. And if we live into old age, it is going to be suffering. And it kind of misses the point of the value of the meat as well, to say that you'd have to keep these cows alive until the day that they were suffering so much you had to put them out of their misery. The meat would be worthless. Therefore, the time and energy put into breeding the cows, keeping the cows alive, giving the cows a life would be worthless. And without that, there would be no cows anyway. And I appreciate that's not the best argument because
but
I'm not
better
into
that
cages.
those cows didn't exist at all.
Right. Yeah, but they do exist
instead
right
of
now.
being exploited.
Yes, but
Like,
they do exist. The cows that do exist right now have got one of two choices. They can either die now because there's no longer any value for the farmers to keep them, or they can die when they're meant to and their meat can be used. And like we both agree, veganism is on the rise. Therefore, the meat industry is on the decline. There's no two ways about that.
yeah.
Okay?
Look, like, I do acknowledge that those animals are going to die.
Yes.
But by stopping buying those products, you stop the production of those products. So less animals will be born in captivity, and they will be less animals will be exploited.
I 100% agree.
Like, if you're going to be born just to be exploited, tortured, and to suffer, it's far better that you don't get born at all.
I agree, and I would also suggest that that applies to the human condition, because that's exactly the situation that we find ourselves born into, because no person is truly free. And I think we could digress into an entire conversation about that, to be honest. But at the same time, we both have to live in the reality this is the situation that we've been born into. And those cows also have to face the reality that this is the situation that they're going to be born into for more generations. There's no quick fix. Veganism is not going to change overnight.
No, I'm not arguing that vegan is gonna change, like, fix everything overnight.
No.
But sooner or later, we're gonna be forced to go vegan.
Right. Okay. And on that day, if somebody passes a law suggesting that meat is now against the law, killing animals is against the law, whatever the law is, I will obviously respect that. I've got no problem with that. But that day has not come yet. And I think the way that you're going to get there is, rather than trying to convince everybody that it's vegan or bust, I think you need to try to find more places where we can all come together. Rather than trying to change everybody's diet immediately, I think it would be better to say, look, these focus on specific places where there are specific abuses. Okay, like is it Thailand, where the dogs there's an absolutely massive illegal dog trade where people are just snatching dogs off the streets and then cooking them and selling them. These things we can all stand together on, even factory farming.
Does it matter if it's illegal or not? Like, I mean, even if it's legal, it's wrong.
From your perspective, but obviously that's not a universal perspective, and as I've suggested, I disagree. I think that the cows have a very good life. Just because they're exploited, the reason that they're born is to be exploited. You could say literally the exact same thing about a human life. The only reason that we're tolerated within society is that we are productive within society. There is value in our existence.
Let me ask you, if they have a good life,
yeah,
is it more justified to take their life?
Yeah.
If
you're providing,
if you had a good life, like, do you have a good life now?
I mean, it's negotiable, but we'll say yes for the sake of argument.
So, would it be okay to take your life?
Yeah. I told you. Yeah, absolutely. We've already had this discussion. I've explained to you that I would rather be shot in the head than left to die of thirst. I don't see a problem with that.
Wouldn't you rather live?
No.
I mean,
how are you not getting this?
No.
There's a limit on the amount of time that you can enjoy your life. Okay. Now, if somebody said to me, you can die before that limit's over, or you can be left to suffer to death, I would rather be shot now. You could say, I've got 10 years left of fitness, right? But my meat is perfect now. So somebody wants to eat me now, or I can live well for another 10 years and then in horrible agony as I slowly degenerate over the next 40 years after that. I would much rather be killed now and miss out on those 10 years rather than have those 10 years and then suffer for another 40 years after that. How is that a hard concept?
No, I understand what you are saying, but aren't you exaggerating a bit? Like,
No.
there's old people that still want to live, and they're not suffering.
Yeah,
like,
but they're not me. I've got no problem with them doing that. That's their choice. I'm telling you right now that my perspective is that I personally would happily make that choice. That's a fair statement to make, right? Because I've looked at it from a very objective perspective. Yeah, because I'm able to say that I'm not selfish enough to say, oh my God, my life matters more than anything in the world. I can look at it objectively because I'm a human with that ability, unlike a cow, and suggest that yes, I can see a great deal of benefit, especially if there was value in my death. Now, there is value in a cow's death. There is no value in a human person's death, right? But let's just say, for example, that there is. That then makes it even better because I'm helping society by dying, or I'm selfishly clinging on to suffering. Why would I choose that?
Can we go back to your
Yeah.
To the previous discussion? Like,
yeah.
If you let's say let's assume that you're probably gonna live to be like 80 or 90. Okay.
Yeah, that's the assumption I made.
You won't be suffering.
Okay, I will, but that's neither here nor there.
Why will you suffer?
What do you think happens?
What will you make you suffer?
What do you think happens to a human body as it gets older? Well, anybody. What do you think happens to a physical body as it gets older? It ages and it degenerates.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking Alzheimer's, we're talking memory issues, we're talking blood clots and blood problems, we're talking about all kinds of things. Risk of stroke, risk of heart attack, even just down to aches and pains and not being able to have the amount of strength in your arms to even be able to, carry out normal tasks. You might very well be able to keep yourself alive, but how are you a productive member of society?
That's not what I'm arguing for. Like, if you're not suffering, and you're enjoying your life, why should it end it? Why should someone end it?
Right. I don't think you're getting this. How many cows do you expect to, if we allowed all the cows, we're just going to go with cows. I'm not going to bother with chickens and pigs right now. We'll just say cows, okay? If somebody decided right now that all those cows that exist have to be left and they're all going to live into old age, right? Whether they're released into the wild or whether they're still kept on the farms, whatever. How many literally of those cows in a percentage do you expect to live their entire life never suffering any of the usual addles of old age?
Okay, usually a cow at best lives to be 20 or 25 years old.
Irrelevant.
And most cows, I think the other die, if it's a milk cow, they probably live to be 4 to 7 years old.
Okay. It's irrelevant though.
I can probably guarantee you that.
Yeah.
If it's an average, most cows will live far beyond that.
But what is that life? That's what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting anything about the death at this point. I'm concentrating on the suffering.
Do you realize that 99% of the animals that you see in the supermarket are factory animals that are confined in small spaces?
Have I not already explained my diet to you? I've told you already that literally 5 minutes from my house there's a farm where the cows are grown. Literally 5 minutes in the other direction there's a supermarket.
I know. That's 1% of the cows.
It doesn't matter to me. It's what I buy. Okay, and now I cannot be held responsible for other people's dietary choices. when it comes to my own personal dietary choices, I choose the meat that I know for a fact is healthy grown meat.
But there's no healthy grown like I guess.
I watch the cows grow. I've got videos of it on my channel. You can go look.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, if it's, is it because like it's free range grown meat that is on a small factory that's healthier?
It's health. These are literally very healthy cows. Okay, I can
Yeah,
go
but
look at
they,
them
they're.
myself.
I'm not arguing that they're not healthy cows. Like,
Yeah,
what you are saying is that
what you're
meat
saying.
is health for you.
No, no. I'm saying that they're living very good lives. Okay, if they have any
Yeah, but
medical issues,
like I'm gonna like
yeah.
If I was like, I'm just putting myself in their position.
Okay.
Okay, like
Yeah.
I can't justify because I'm living a good life that someone takes my life. Do you know what I mean?
No, because what if you think that the entirety of your good life exists solely for you to give them something in return? So your choice is, right, you can either sit inside this nice wall with all this beautiful food, with your cow friends, right, and you can have all the medical care that you need through your life. You can be safe from predators, you can be warm in winter, or you can be kicked onto the other side of the wall where you'll have to defend for yourself, you'll have to find your own way through the winter, you'll have to watch out for predators 24/7. Those are your two choices. Which are you picking? Are you going to be safe and secure? I know you're going to say yes to that because you live in a society and you've got the internet. If you would say no to that, you would have said fuck society a long time ago, and you would be living in the wild right now, out of your own hands, because that's the choice.
Probably depends if I was allowed to live a full life without being exploited, but
you are being exploited right now.
I will choose to stay inside. If they kill me, like I wouldn't want to be killed, so I'd rather take my chances outside. But if I was allowed to live until old age and die by natural causes,
do you not think
I would stay inside?
Do you not think that's ridiculously selfish of you? If the value that you give to the person who has literally given you everything in your entire life is worthless by the time you're asking to die, why would they keep you? Why would they give you that life? Why would you enjoy your happy life? Like, what is in it for the person that is looking after you?
Why
because
does it have to be something about the person? Like, it gives me like,
right, do you understand that as a human being right now, you are being exploited by governments, by businesses, by work, like literally the whole of life? You're not free. You're in a system, and the system is built around making money, making profit, and making power. And you're nothing but a meaningless, tiny cog in that system. And yet, you're still happy to live in that system. You're still happy to provide for these people because they are also providing for you. The very powers that are using you to get more powerful.
Like, I'm not suffering.
Well, you are. Do you never ache? I don't understand what you mean when you say you're not suffering. Obviously, you go through the same anxieties that any other human being goes through. You'll have accidents.
That's life.
Exactly, that's life, right. And it happens to everyone, regardless of circumstance, regardless where they are, who they are, or what species they are.
Yeah, but that doesn't justify killing an animal.
What's suffering about killing it though? This is where you're conflating the idea of killing it with the idea of its suffering. Why does there ever have to be any suffering? There doesn't.
Because they are like suffering. Like most people equate suffering with pain, and suffering isn't just pain. The animal like wants to live, and I want to live. I don't want to die. Like,
right, everybody wants to live, nobody wants to die, but everybody does die.
Exactly. Like
everybody dies.
Myself in the position of the animal, I would still want to live.
Everybody wants to live, so
everybody
dies.
The best outcome.
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies, but that's not justification to kill someone early. Like, People die, so should they go outside and kill everyone? No.
What? This doesn't
But
make any sense. You're
no,
not
you said
understanding the value of the meat.
no. You said people die. So is it
Yeah.
justified because people die to kill someone earlier?
I mean, if you go to Switzerland, the answer is yes, because in Switzerland they've got that rule. I think it's Switzerland. I think I'm remembering that right. It might be Sweden. I forget. In one of those places, you can go, you can get an injection. Now, sadly, that's only if you can prove that medically you're on your way out anyway, and you're going to be going through a lot of suffering if they don't put you out of your misery.
Yeah, but
I'd like to see that expanded so that everybody has the right to die.
Is that consensual? Like, does a person consent to that?
I would assume so, yeah. It depends on the situation.
His own choice to end his life because he's suffering. That's entirely different thing.
It is entirely different. I agree with you. I'd like to see it broadened so that everybody has the right to choose when they die. And again, still that is different because
you
they
have
are
the right
still
to
choosing.
do whatever you want with your body.
Okay.
That's up to you. Like, if you want to smoke, like, and destroy your health,
I'm doing that right now.
I can tell you that smoking is bad for you, but
yeah,
you have no moral obligation to stop smoking. Like, I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't cause anyone else around you suffering, except if you're smoking next to them.
Yeah,
that would be a bad thing to do.
Yeah, we're both agreeing on that. I totally agree. What you're saying is it's not fair to kill an animal because that animal has not consented to dying. But that animal, before it was born, would probably have consented to living.
I don't know how can an animal, like,
because
someone before he's born, consent to living.
Right. What I'm suggesting is that if somebody said to you, would you rather
Okay, so
no, listen to me. If you would rather have, as a human right now, right, would you rather have 30 years of a good life and then a sudden death, which is painless, or would you rather not be born in the first place? They're your only two choices. Which do you pick?
Yeah, but I'd rather be born, but that is not.
So that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I get what you're meaning. You want to say, but
okay. The other thing that you've got. The other thing that you've got to understand. The other thing that you've got to understand is that these cows are property. These animals, this livestock, is somebody's property. Now, whether you agree with that or not is irrelevant to the law. By law, lawfully, these animals are the property of the person who is looking after those animals. Okay, and he is investing he or she is investing a great amount of money into this meat, which only has value within a certain period of their life, which happens to be before they're old. So they never would have been born in the first place, but they are born because of the value of their meat, which means that they have to die young, which is exactly the same as the analogy I just gave you about if you died when you were 30. And I agree that there's no reason for suffering. There's no reason for halal deaths. There's no reason for any of that kind of shit. It should be an instant, painless death. And that's the only way that I'll accept. And I don't see a problem with that.
Let me ask, if I was breeding humans, would it be okay to kill them if I gave them 30 years of their life? Or would it be okay, like, if they live for like 30 years?
Within the law, okay? So within your analogy, you're suggesting that it's perfectly lawful to do that.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so I'm suggesting that at the minute it is perfectly lawful for people to own these animals. And you're suggesting if somebody owned humans, would it be all right to do that to the humans? And I'm saying, in your analogy, is it lawful to do that? Is it a legal action to own those humans?
Yeah. It's
okay. Well, if it's legal, then we're going back to the Roman Empire when they kept slaves. We're going back to the start of America when they all had slaves. We're going back to the Egyptian period when they all had slaves, and we're saying, yeah, it's absolutely okay, because we know by these periods in history, we can see that socially they were accepted by the majority of people, and the majority of people couldn't afford slaves. They just accepted that this was a part of life. So we know that socially, if that was the situation, that yes, that would be absolutely fine. and nobody would have a problem with it. Now, would I want to be one of those slaves? Absolutely not. But that's only because I've got, like, in my brain, I've got the choice between being free and being a slave. A cow does not have that choice. It has the choice between not being born at all or being born a slave. Those are the only two choices.
Why does it have to be that way? Like,
that's the way that we've come. That's the way that we're progressing. It's not. There wasn't a time in history when
that's how it was for human slaves.
No, that's how history has been for everything, right? For the whole, from the start of society, we have given ourselves privilege over every other dominion over everything else on the planet, and slowly over time, women got rights. Who got rights first? Was it slaves or women? I forget. I think slaves got slaves got freedom first, and then women got rights. Can you see how we slowly build up to equality? There was never a time in history when everything was equal, and we've suddenly decided to unbalance it and give ourselves more. Slowly, we're giving these things more and more rights. Slowly, things are changing. There was a time when it was absolutely perfectly legal and not looked at twice for people to abuse animals. There's a crime. I can explain this to you, but in an anecdotal way, because there's no way I can find a reference to it. But there was an old man with a dog and a walking stick who was walking through London, which is a city in my country, and he got accosted by some young lads. The young lads took his walking stick and broke it over the back of the dog. They hit the dog so hard that they broke the walking stick over the back of the dog. And this is recent history. I'm not talking a long time ago. Only a couple of years ago or so. Anyway, the police came along. They said there's nothing we can do about it because hitting a dog isn't a crime. The old man explained that they'd broken the walking stick and the young lads got done for destruction of property. No charges for abusing the dog.
Are you kidding me?
No, it was an actual, like, legitimate little segment on, one of those cops TV programs on cops or whatever they call it.
Like how long ago was that?
Like I say, it was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, so well within recent history. And the police were unwilling to do anything about it until they heard that there was broken property, and then they went and did the kids for destruction of property. Literally nothing to do with the dog, because these things are not immediately given equal status to humans, and then we've taken it away. That's not what's happening. Over the years, over the centuries even, we're slowly building society up that way. Do you see what I mean? This is what I mean when I say veganism is a growing trend. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to convince people like me. It's just not even feasible that you could stop me from eating meat. It's a very important part of my diet. There are also other animal products that I'm sure I use without caring. I don't use products that I know are tested on animals. I don't use anything caged because I consider that to be abuse. I consider factory farms to be abuse, and I wouldn't eat that whenever given the option. These are things that we can stand together on. What we can't stand together on is end it all right now, because you're not going to have the effect that you think you're going to have. You're going to drive away all the free range stuff, which you've got a problem with. That's fine. I don't mind you having a problem with that. But at the minute, what you're driving it into is cages, is factory farming. Rather than getting rid of that first and then slowly weaning down and getting rid of the...
But there's no way to get rid of animal agriculture.
No, not straight away there isn't, because it's so embedded within society.
How are you gonna,
you can protest. You can stand with meat eaters. You could stand side by side with meat eaters if you would let yourself do it and stop factory farming. Because if you started some kind of petition to stop factory farming, to make it law that this was illegal to do, there are billions of meat eaters who would happily sign that, who would happily protest in the streets and stop factory farming. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. And if anything, it's the vegans that are stopping that from happening, because you guys are in the best position to start this, and yet you refuse to stand by our side unless we turn into vegans. And it's ridiculous. It's not going to happen like that. Okay, so let's look at another one. No, go on.
I don't refuse to stand. Like, if you have a good position, like, the outcome of better, like the better treatment of animals in
Slowly,
the animal in
one
the meat
step at a time.
industry, like that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
and I don't particularly advocate for
No,
like welfare, but welfare is a good outcome. But being like abolishing the whole thing, that's the best.
impossible. It's impossible. You need to
Like,
realize that within your lifetime that will never happen. All you can do is make small incremental steps towards it, and if you try to do that, then you will probably succeed. If you try to abolish the whole system, it's not going to happen in your lifetime. It's really not. People felt the same way about Christianity at one time, you know. They thought that by now there'd be no such thing as Christianity because they could just abolish it by teaching people the right way to think. And it doesn't happen. People cling on to dogma for centuries.
yeah, but
so what can you do? You can change the law incrementally. You can say, look, okay, we can't stop factory farming, but we can stop X abuse. We can stop, for example, they cut holes. I don't know if you know this, but in some places in America, they cut a hole in the stomach of the cow and put a big plug in it so that they can just open the plug. It's disgusting, and it should be against the law. That is true animal abuse. And I'm telling you now, you get information like that out to meat eaters, and you willingly stand by their side and make a petition and say, I'm not trying to change your lifestyle, but can we all just get behind the fact that this shouldn't happen? Millions of people will sign that petition. Whereas if you show that exact same information to millions of people and say this is why you should go vegan, they will all fucking ignore it. All of them.